It's safe to say that most people, if not all, just want to become more interesting, independent of what the reason for that is. Whether it's to be more interesting so you can attract women better, whether it's to be more interesting so that you can network with like-minded people, or even if you want to become more interesting for the sole reason of just talking to people more easily and more confidently. And because you understand the utter importance of speaking in such a way that people love listening to you, and then those same people love speaking to you and having you hear what they have to say because they value you so highly based on how interesting you are and how socially competent you are. And to summarize everything that I'm going to say in this video, basically, be passionate and interested about the things that you enjoy, and be curious and interested about things that you don't fully understand or don't know anything about. And so how does being interested about things that you like and being curious about things that you don't understand make you more interesting? But firstly, all it means to be interested in anything at all is that something is holding or catching your attention. And of course the things that interest us most are things that we already have some knowledge of. That's why it's always easy to make small talk about the weather or about the news that's going on or politics. It's stuff that is also always going on and that most people know about. But that's not exactly relevant here because we're trying to become more interesting people and not more interesting to appeal to the masses, because the majority of people are boring and what they talk about is useless. And so because what is familiar to us is interesting, that's why it's so important to be curious and ask questions to the people who are speaking, because if they're speaking more, they're going to be enjoying the conversation more, because people just like talking about themselves. And if that person is talking about something that they personally enjoy, they're going to have a good time and they're going to see you as more interesting because you make them feel good and they're going to like you more because of that. And then when it comes to you saying your own things, they're going to be more open to it and more receptive because you laid out that foundation of them liking you from listening. And so on top of listening and asking questions and being curious when other people are speaking, you yourself be interested and be passionate about things that you like. And then talk about them things if it comes up in conversation, or if you're able to make a point about that. Because you know yourself that you could be listening to someone talk about something that you don't fully understand or even care about. But if they are truly, truly passionate about what they're speaking about, it's going to become more interesting. For example, me and my girlfriend have watched a few David Attenborough documentaries about animals and the wildlife in the UK. And I think that animals are pretty interesting because they would have some of the same instincts as humans, and it's quite interesting to see that reflection of humans in animals. So I was quite interested to watch the David Attenborough documentaries because of that. But he also talks about the plants and the trees and the grass and the ground in the UK as well. But I kind of didn't care about that. And when he initially started speaking about it, I wasn't too interested. But because he knows so much about it and he's able to explain it in such depth, it makes it interesting because he's able to explain in such a way that makes sense. And so now I have understood this completely foreign concept and it was digested down to me so well that I was able to take it on without much thinking. And now I'll be able to remember something like that whenever I go outside anytime at all. And on top of that, because David Attenborough explained things so well, I'm going to look at him as a person and think, what else does he know that he can explain so well to me? So listen to the things that people say, be curious about what they're saying and ask questions. And also be interested and passionate about your own things and be able to talk about it and tie it into the conversations that you have with other people. Those two things are going to be your foundational building blocks of becoming an interesting man. And so those two things are the things that you need to focus on the very most. But to add on to the point of talking about things that you're interested and passionate about, go experience them or experience them as much as you can. Because the personal stories and experiences that you would have when talking about something that you are interested or passionate about only adds to your interest. Because take for example, say your friend hiked up a mountain and took a picture of the view and it looked absolutely amazing. And you have that photo on your phone and you could show that to someone and say, look what my friend did, isn't that really cool? And then you could open up a conversation about hiking and mountains and whatever. And that would work without a doubt, and that's not a bad thing to do. But imagine that same scenario, but you were the one who hiked up that mountain and took a picture of that amazing view. And you were able to say, look, I hiked up a mountain and I took this picture. With that opens up the door to a whole new conversation about your experience and your story in doing that, on top of the conversation about hiking and mountains. Or I could use the example of cars. And say, for example, I'm walking with a friend, and as we're walking, an R32 Skyline drives by, and we could talk about how nice it is, and JDM cars, and whatever. Or I could meet that friend in my R32 Skyline if I had one. And that isn't as much of an experience, but me having that car is an experience, and that opens up the door to the conversation about how the car is, how much it costs, is it a hassle, is it nice, is it comfortable, everything like that. Or even if you were talking to someone about health and wellness, for example, and they said that intermittent fasting is good or 24-hour fasts are good, and you could join in the conversation and say, oh yeah, they are good because you get this, and this benefit, but you need to be careful that this. Again, that is a perfectly fine conversation to have. But if you went through that yourself, and I have, so I can use this example pretty well, someone could talk about fasting, and I could say, oh yeah, I've done a few 24-hour fasts, and I usually intermittently fast every single day. And with my experience of having done that, that opens up the door to talk about my experience on top of the theory of fasting as well. It's basically that your personal stories add on another layer of interest for other people. Because not only are they going to be interested about the things that you're passionate about, but if you've also experienced the things that you're passionate about, that's only going to be so much more interesting to listen to. And lastly, with a man trying to improve his life as much as he can, becoming the absolute best version of himself, and trying to build up his dream life so he has everything that he wants, the things that you're going to be interested in, and the things that you will want to talk about, aren't going to be normal from the eyes of the majority of the population, because the majority of the population want to talk about football, want to talk about the weather, want to talk about what's happening with celebrities, want to talk about what's happening in different countries, or gossip, or what's going on with their friends. It's going to be things that are not interesting and don't help anyone and probably drain you listening to it and speaking about it. And so it means that you will only be interested with people that you click with, which will not be everybody. And as a young, ambitious, masculine man, it won't be very many at all, because you could be interested in talking about improving your life and how the brain works in relation to improving your life, and how your brain can sometimes hold you back and want comfort, and what the best workout routine is for building strength or building hypertrophy, or how you can settle your mind, or what's the best meditation practice. Those type of things are mundane to most people, and so if you try to talk about that to most people, you'll feel and seem uninteresting. But it's not your fault, and that's not even the case. It's a mere compatibility issue, and because you're trying to reach the top 20% of men in the entire world, it means that you won't be compatible to very many people. And the very last point is that don't become a one-dimensional man and only be interested in talking about 2 or 3 things. Be interested in a lot of things that spike your curiosity, so that there will always be a lot of things that you enjoy hearing about or talking about. And then if it so happens that you meet someone who knows a lot about the things that you're interested in but don't know about, you'll be able to learn from them, and you won't have to put in a large amount of effort. And with that concludes on how you can become a much more interesting man. If this video has helped you at all, make sure you subscribe, because it really does help a lot. Put in enough time and attention, because that will make anything into reality.